Good morning, different sir.
Hey, good morning, Ben.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
Cool. So you're not Derek, it seems like.
Nope, I'm not. I'll talk to Derek later, but I'm taking his place right now.
Just for right now, yeah. So on the line, we have Mr. Matt Wensing, founder and CEO of Summit, forecasting tool for SaaS businesses, host of Out of Beta podcast, which I was on like a couple weeks ago, which is super fun. And most relevantly, founder of Riskpulse, which predicts supply chain risk for very large companies. And as part of that, you did a lot of sales and larger sales deals, which is what I'm hoping to pick your brain about today.
Oh, it's great. That's great. Yeah, I did a lot of deals. I was trying to think of like a way to introduce that and just to give folks an idea. You know, I've sold every price point from $300 a year, which I really should never have been on the phone to do, but I did anyway, all the way up to, $300,000 a year, actually more than that. So it gave me a lot of experience, trial by fire too. So it's really fun to try to pass along at least what I've learned in my experience.
Mm-hmm. Did you walk those prices up just by like realizing that this was giving more and more value to bigger companies?
I did. Yes. The short answer is yes. In order to give them the buying experience that they wanted, you kind of had to charge more.
And what did they want? They wanted like a lot of hand-holding and PowerPoint?
They did. There's that saying, not original with me, and I forget who said it, but it was, at the low end, people expect the service to be free and the product to be what they pay for. And at the very high end, they expect the product to be free and the service is what they're actually paying for. So it's like you get to talk to my team and me, which is worth six figures easily per year in terms of consulting. And you get to use this product when we're not talking to you. That's kind of what it ended up. That's what I'm feeling like. Now, obviously, you do end up scaling data and there is this service that's not possible without the product, but you really do realize at some point that they're getting a ton of value outside of the product. So you might as well charge for it. And that's what you end up doing.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, the thing I'm starting to realize about sales, which I am new to, is that I'm kind of doing project management for somebody else.
Oh, yes.
It's like they have this project of getting Tuple purchased, and I am the one that is making sure it actually happens.
Yes. Yeah, that's absolutely true. And you've got stakeholders and influencers and naysayers, and it's just like any other project,
I'm mostly not trying to convince anyone of anything. A lot of the times it's like, hi, I'm John from procurement, and the team wants Tuple. And it's like, great, okay, so that's already done. Surely most of the work is done. It's like, no, most of the work is not done, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, most of it's not done. I was thinking about this before we spoke today, like what's unique about Ben's experience. And from what I can tell, yeah, you get to skip a couple chapters of most sales books, which are about the convincing and coordination of all of those stakeholders. The fact that you get to go straight to we want to buy this thing. Yeah, like the naive assumption is that, hey, that's great. Like now it's just straightforward. There's still project to be done, right? And then what happens once they get the product? Like, I don't know if you've encountered yet their desire to learn how to use it better, or maybe even understand best practices, or how do we get the most out of this thing?
A lot of the times that manifests as like someone emailing us and saying, it would be great if it did X, and like it does X. We already have that feature. We just have not made it discoverable enough.
Yeah. So before you know it, you'll have like the standard video library that's available to people to watch if they want to. And you'll still get questions though.
I wrote up this like pair programming guide kind of as a content marketing resource. And we have like a feedback box on it. And the last handful of feedback things I've gotten were like basically complaining about how it doesn't talk about Tuple. So it's like these people were looking for like a manual and they'd be like, this doesn't say anything about the app. What's going on here?
Yeah, that's great. And it'll be interesting to find out like the cost to serve these customers as well over time. I mean, the wonderful thing would be if they were all just completely hands off, but probably not. But no, you do have this really awesome situation from what I can tell that you've gotten to skip there's methodologies and models for how you challenge the customer to understand what's in their best interest, even though they might not realize it, and to convince the crusty naysayers to buy into your newfangled thing. So far, you haven't had to deal with that. I'm sure that might come eventually. Like if for example, someone like, IBM was like, we want to get into pair programming. There might be somebody there who's like, don't we already have Blue JX25000, which already does this screen sharing thing. We don't need that. And then you'll have to persuade. You'll have to decide if it's worth it, but then you're like, wait a minute, but there's like 25,000 developers there. Like, this is probably worth it.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember talking to you or sharing with you or something, that page I wrote about like purchasing Tuple as a thing you could share with your boss, more or less. I've started on this process because sometimes people do end up in that state where they we seem to be adopted from the bottom up as opposed to from the top down. And so I wanted to make something that would empower a developer to help this process move forward.
That's great. In thinking about that, bottoms up is going to work in organizations that are themselves where the innovation is coming from the bottom up, or maybe it's not. Maybe the top is not innovative, but the bottom is innovative. Where the tops down happens because it has to happen is where somebody, with new thinking caps on, gets installed at the director or VP level and says, how do I get this engineering organization to be more productive and more with the times, if you will? And then, who knows, maybe half the organization is developers that have been doing it their way for the last 12 or 17 years or whatever. And, now you do have to figure out this top down, bottom up simultaneous thing.
Yeah. I'm curious about trying that at some point. Because when I was on out of beta, you were saying, okay, you've got Shopify as a customer. Why aren't you going and finding more Shopifys? And my answer was more or less, well, Shopify started with a small team and expanded over time. I don't exactly know how to start from the top. I'm not even sure starting from the top makes sense. It seems like it's not super common for a high level person to dictate down the tech team, what kind of tech they're going to use.
Yeah.
One thing I was thinking of since then is it could just be the case that if I was like, hey, I've wired up a free trial, a free pilot for your team, large company, for the next 60 days. Feel free to distribute this to any team in the engineering org that wants to give it a shot. That could be something that works.
Yeah. And it makes me wonder about tools like Slack and Zoom as well. You could totally see people trying to adopt those or adopting those in small squad settings. But then there is definitely a top-down sale that has to happen for the whole organization to get on board, not just from a convincing standpoint, but like you were saying earlier, just from a rollout standpoint. You need coordination across departments so that you don't have 17 contracts with Tuple. So, yeah. And then whose budget does that come out of? And why is it coming out of my budget? And all of that stuff.
Right. I was actually reading about this in terms of Slack in particular. And they talk about how their sales process is still very much it's still kind of bottom up actually. And they say our best sales results come when we can go and talk to someone and say, look at all these happy users you already have in these various departments.
Yeah.
We should talk about a bigger thing.
Of course. Yeah, that makes sense.
So I think that actually might be the right model for us too.
Yeah, I think so. And there's definitely playbooks and templates you can use for that. I mean, that's the good news is that, gosh, there's a lot of content out there about how to do sales for SaaS in the enterprise compared to what there used to be. And just for listeners' sake, Jason Lemkin and SaaStr is the holy grail and mecca of all this knowledge. And Brian Balfour as well of HubSpot, Mafia, wrote a lot of really awesome sales material in this regard. Just the templates, not just for the collateral or the phone calls, but the organizational models that support certain kinds of sales. So we talked on out of beta about farming. Your enterprise sales folks at Tuple one day might just be farming your customer base, and they're not hunters, they're actually farmers. And that's relatively new, but it's wonderful because your cost of acquisition just falls to the ground because you're not paying guys to get on planes and go to conferences to acquire brand new baby customers. Those are being nurtured by the product, and when they're ripe and ready, you have somebody that knows how to bring those together into 6-figure contracts.
Totally. I got my a first taste of this the other day where I signed up some company for an annual plan, and they're like, we want 9 seats, and so I did that and charged them for the 9 seats, and then I realized they already were using all 9, and I was like, hey, just so you know, you're using 9 out of 9. Let me know if you want a couple more of that price. And he was like, yeah, sure, throw an extra one on there.
That's great.
All right. Wow. Yeah. That was easy money.
Yes. That's great. Cool.
When did you start hiring sales help at Riskpulse?
Ooh, a couple different times. So as as I hinted, we went up we went up from a very small price to very high prices. And like, just to spoil the punchline, it turns out that like salespeople at different price points are different. And so what I had to do is I actually had to hire salespeople multiple times, and I had to hire different kinds of salespeople each time. And so the original wave was just me and kind of a jack of all trades, answer the phones, customer success, quote prices, and take credit card numbers person, which is just fielding inbound interest in credit card purchasing. The person already knows they want to buy. They just need pricing, and they just need to get the transaction done.
They know this because you had a trial of some kind?
Yeah, they knew this because it was freemium. So they were using the free version, and I took a lot of risks on freemium in the early days of freemium back in 2006 and 7 and 8, and almost went bankrupt as a company, but it ended up working out. They would reach out and say, oh, okay, it's time for us to get the 3-user license premium version. And then I would have either me or that other salesperson say, oh, that'll be $1,158 a year because it's some number times 3, and just take their credit card number and get them signed up. So that was, I started doing that once the sheer volume of answering those inbounds was more than I could handle. But the next thing was, a lot of them weren't reaching out to me. Like they were free users and they were companies, but they weren't reaching out. So back in 2012, so like a little bit later, I reached out to a firm called Elastic Sales, which was run by a fellow Steliefti that most people know. Steliefti's Elastic Sales organization. I remember Googling for, or at least saying it in my head, like, gosh, I wish there was like an EC2 for sales. Like something I could spin up and have a bunch of salespeople just attack this huge list of leads. Literally, that was like their tagline. It was, it's like, and they were called Elastic Sales. So I was like, oh my gosh. So I convinced them that I would be a great early customer of Elastic Sales. And so it was really wonderful because we had a seasonal sales situation. People bought in the summer and tended to not buy in the winter, at least at that time. So it was really cool. Like once they qualified me as a good partner, which is really customer for Elastic Sales, they ended up spinning up 2 full-time salespeople to just cold call the list of like 10,000 free users, that we had. And they just kind of made it rain all summer long, which was really cool. It worked. I mean, these customers were very, very overdue for a call from us to say, are you aware of the premium features we have? And why haven't you signed up yet? And they're like, not really. I've been thinking about it. And they would just do their little call, and they would close deals over the phone. That was when I realized we needed it, was when just the opportunity cost of not doing something was just stupid. It was just stupid. So
was that like a big turning point in your growth?
Oh yeah, definitely. That moved us from a freemium model making about $150,000 a year to a healthy freemium model making about $600,000 a year. And there was a lot of other things we did to the approach to the free users. Like we made it a little bit easier for them to decide they needed the paid version. We took away some stuff and, gussied up the marketing page and made it clear that like, if you're a business, you would be better off with the business edition, that kind of thing. But that combined with calling those people like 4x our revenue that summer. And we paid commissions to those people. So like Elastic was happy, but we were getting the other 80% that we weren't paying out in commissions. So we were very happy. Like it was definitely a huge year for us. Yeah.
And then, so did you keep up with some sales effort like that? Or once they went through the list, was that like it for a while?
Yeah. Unfortunately, that was it for a while for us because we just had those 10,000 businesses, which like is a lot of the businesses in the entire territory that we were serving. So it was like there wasn't another 10,000 in that segment to go after. So once they went through that list, it was just about renewing those guys. And then the next question was, okay, now that we've exhausted effectively this channel, like this freemium channel, how are we going to make more money, right? Because we now have the 2,000 subscribers out of the 10,000 that are going to become customers for the foreseeable future. And so that's where we went to the pricing changes that I talked about earlier of, I wonder out of these 2,000, like how many would pay twice as much or 10 times more? And we just kept exploring the high end of the market. which was then again like that's a different skill set than cold calling somebody and getting them to sign up because they're already a free user. It's like, you're a user. I need to understand your organization now. How are you using the product? You are a paid user. What's your utilization compared to what it should be? Are you happy with it? Like, there's a whole nother set of qualification questions that you have to go through. So that was a inside sales model, which Elastic could have done as well. And I re-engaged them about this, but they were pivoting their business as well to CRM and kind of winding down the consulting business. So I ended up hiring a handful of inside salespeople and contracted VP of sales to run that team to go after the now 2,000 paying customers and see who out of them is willing to go from, say, $25 a month to $250 a month. So that was the next phase.
Super interesting.
It was a ride.
Yeah. So I sent you a page I wrote over the weekend, that enterprise sales details thing.
Yeah.
I sent it over, and I'm curious about your thoughts around this. So I had this motivation, which is like, first of all, I'm answering a lot of the same questions when like a larger company wants to buy this thing. But also we're negotiating price a pretty bespoke way for these companies. And also there is a real cost to the purchasing process for some of these companies, where it's like sometimes it works pretty fast and sometimes it is like literally months of back and forth and filling out Excel spreadsheets and signing up on their vendor management platform, and like it can be real work. And so I sort of combined all those goals, and I was like, what if I first of all wrote up a page that was, here's everything you hopefully want to know to decide whether or not we're doing this, and also the questions you might have during the process. Here is our standard pricing, so that we just know what it costs, and I don't need to actually exert any mental energy for each of these deals. And by the way, here's a setup fee, which we're going to charge you if you can't do a fairly streamlined process. And it's fine if you want to do the painful process, but we're just going to sort of price in as a line item the cost to our time and frustration for that. So I'm curious what you think of this.
I think it's a step in the right direction. I know you were like just throwing it against the wall here for V1. Like it's kind of fun to see, which is why I'm laughing, because like, yes, like the gestures that you're making on this page, like if I can put it that way, are correct. The tone and like the way you say it is unorthodox, but that's because that makes sense too, right? So like everything you're saying here, there is the professional equivalent of it. It's almost like you haven't like cast it correctly. It's like,
yeah, like, I know what you mean.
You know what I mean? So it's like, if we have to do this thing, like we're going to charge you money. It's like, oh, you mean like long-term contracting and compliance documents? Like, there's that phraseology that you learn, but this is a practice called sales operations, right? Which is typically at some point, like your job is done. You, Ben, or your enterprise salesperson's job is done once the procurement person agrees on a price and like a contract. And even there, like I was thinking about this too earlier before we came on, like what's something that I learned? Selling as a team, like on your side, is way better than selling as a lone wolf or just a solo operator. So I know it's really annoying to have handoffs, so I'm not saying we want to like hand people off to, hey, now Joe is going to take care of you because there's a bunch of work I don't want to do. It's like, no, you stay there, but like Joe is there, or Jane, to do all the stuff you just talked about, fill out the vendor form and whatever, so you can stay strategic in your conversations with the champion and the buyer, because like the VP of engineering at Shopify doesn't really care about this stuff either. Like this is the things that have to get done for his team to be happy. So you can kind of stay at that level. I think actually the language that's on this page would probably resonate with him or her in a sense, because it's like, yeah, I'm sorry, Ben, this is just how we do things here. But like the API, the interface between their people and your soon-to-be people will end up being formalized into more of a, hey, we need a JSOC 3 whatever doc, and it's like, oh, we have one of those over here, and oh, you need 2, we have that instead. Like you'll just have a sales operations team Mitch might start out as one person who just does this work, right? And this is, and hopefully you automate that a bunch, but like I don't know that can be completely. So anyway, back to this page, like I think it's the nascent form of that happening for Tuple, which makes sense. And I think, yes, it is intentionally cheeky, which kind of fits the tone of talking to developers, but I think you'll end up having a brighter line at some point between, this page is for people who this is their job at some point, maybe. And they're going to want to, not have to rub their toe in the sand too much to to buy your stuff. So
that's good feedback.
Yeah. But I mean, it's correct directionally.
Yep. Yeah. That was part of my question. Is like, am I being a little too sassy here?
Yeah.
You can probably feel a little bit of my frustration around the fact that this is a thing in the world.
Of course. And, you'll find your counterparties at these companies also frustrated, sometimes even more frustrated than you. Then you'll find the poor person who's like, they're sorry they have to do this. And then you'll find the person who just loves this stuff. And like, they could actually be your best friend as long as they feel respected,
Totally. Yeah. That's a great point.
Yeah.
I think I was writing this like imagining the developer on the other side,
exactly.
Or the VP of engineering, who absolutely I've already experienced. Like, it's like, I'm so sorry this is taking so long. I'm sorry. Here's another form you have to fill out. But yes, I imagine the procurement person is not like, I agree, my job is stupid.
We don't.
LOL.
Yeah, they don't. They should figure out how to get rid of me.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. But this is all familiar territory, and like, this is good stuff. It's all going to end up getting priced in. And I mean, another thing you're going to do is you're going to start talking about multi-year contracts at some point, because really they don't want to have to go through this for every 12 months either, because 12 months, like 9 months. So if you think about this, like, they're going to have a 90-day or some kind of out clause that says, like, if you don't want to renew, you'll, let us know before the renewal date, and you'll have some, point of no return where it's like, if you don't tell us within 30 days or 90 days of canceling. So if you think about that, like, by the time this is deployed fully and fully utilized and spun up by all the developers there, like, they might only have 8 months before they have to make a renewal decision. And people don't want to do that either. So you're going to end up with 2 to 3 year contracts, which is going to throw your total contract value through the roof, which is awesome, because then you as Tuple can do all kinds of cool stuff with that. Like, that is bankable. That's factorable. That's something you can lend against, right? Or borrow against. So like, the asset value of your business is going to be increasingly judged by the total contract value, or the amount of revenue you have under contract, right? And so the better you get at that, the better for everybody, because now you can say, like, hey, I can hire somebody on the basis of this contract and know that we're good for 3 years on this money, right?
It's crazy. When we started the business, in my mind, I was imagining we're going to sell Tuple to individual freelancers for some number of, tens of dollars per month, and we'll charge them every month on their credit card.
Yeah.
And now my reality is like, what would a 3-year deal look like for hundreds of developers? It's like such a shift.
Totally. They're not going to pay that up front, but they'll definitely pay annually. And, that the second check that comes in for like year 2 that doesn't involve any sales work other than sending an invoice.
Sounds pretty good.
Yeah. that's pretty good.
That sounds like my style. I could get used to that.
Yeah. And you'll have somebody that sends those invoices, and then you'll have a receivables department whose job it is to chase those things and be like, your aging report says that you're 120 days past, your normal payment period. Why haven't you paid yet? And, that will become a thing. So it won't be effortless, but the ones that just pay on time, oh, beautiful.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. So I feel like this is a step I'm going to have to, or like, I think I'll have to write in the doc or something, because I don't even think about, what if we just did 3 years? Like that question would not have occurred to me.
Yeah. Certainly you can discount the second. I mean, at least 2 years, basically say, do you want to go through this again? And if you can't get 2 years, next best thing is an automatic renewal clause that says, I don't think either of us wants to go through this again in 8 or 9 months. So if you do not cancel, this all auto renews, correct? And that's what everybody wants, because nobody wants to, you don't want to have to remember, like, in December in the middle of the holidays that you need to renew your Tuple subscription, right? You just want you want You do not want your service to be discontinued suddenly. You want to have to opt into discontinuing your service, right? And it's like, oh yeah, for sure. Yep. Yeah, it's like sell once, revenue forever. That's the goal.
I'm sold on that pitch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sounds good. Revenue forever, the title of my new book.
That would go. Yeah.
Right. Who wouldn't buy that? It's so, there's this weird thing in my head of like, yeah, terms of service, those don't mean anything. That's just like an annoying document you have to click through. But it turns out like you can have a piece of paper that has some certain sentences on it that's worth $100,000 next year.
Jeez. Yes. And that's why having a strategic law firm involved in your business that knows how to review enterprise sales contracts and has experience with that, pay the $3,000 or $2,000, or heck, they might charge you $1,000 as a courtesy discount. Like literally it's 100x on your spend to go have a good lawyer in Boston look at that for you. And I'm sure OpenView or somebody has like a recommendation for you. That's one way to do it. The other way is anytime you have somebody in the business that has enterprise sales experience, like that's the first thing that once we hired an enterprise salesperson, so I didn't get to that part of the story and we might not have time, but like the first thing he did is like, let me look at all your contracts and improve them dramatically for the sake of the business. And oh, by the way, why don't you have an automatic customary price increase of 5% every year? Because
why don't you?
Yeah, because inflation's a thing and cost to serve is a thing, and like, nope, there's no enterprise company who's not going to swallow a 3 to 5% annual contract price increase, and 3 to 5% on a $100,000 contract is $3 to $5 grand, and having that built-in compounding is also like, this is how these things turn into annuities, if you will, rather than just, declining margins, right? Yeah.
Okay, more things like that. What else did this person want to add to your contract?
Yeah, I mean, it's the renewal, it's the auto increase.
Yep.
And just looking at, there's some stuff that will bite you later. Like if Tuple, if Zoom comes along in 5 years and says they want to buy Tuple, there are things in those contracts that can hurt you really badly there, which is like, what's the indemnifications that you have, and what happens if somebody uses what happens if somebody uses Tuple to do something nefarious at that company? Like, are you liable for that because of what they did? And standardization there is what ends up mattering. The problem is when you talk to a company like Shopify, that they're going to say like, that's nice that you have a contract, here's ours, and and this is the one we use. So the best thing you can do at that point is have your legal or team review it at least and make sure that there's nothing in there that like treats you like some of these companies, like, I think you're in a good space selling to developers and tech companies, but like I sold to manufacturing companies, and you wouldn't be surprised the number of manufacturing companies that treated us as if we were like coming in to install machinery into their factory. And so they would have things in there that just like made no sense for our kind of business. And so we had to ask if we can strike those. Now, when you're talking to like a Fortune 50, you still might not be able to, but at the very least, like just writing something down that says like, we do not believe that this creates a risk for Tuple because X is really nice to have in your data room for future corporate development talks or whatever, because, they will want to see all of your contracts, right? So that would be my other piece of advice is please store all these in Drive or Dropbox or something in a very organized fashion. Maybe even a CRM or something. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Already doing that.
Good.
Joel apparently has gone through an acquisition of his last company.
Oh, good.
This was one of his takeaways, was like, get all these in one place.
Golly, yes. Yep. Good stuff.
So I've been diligent about that. So when I do go talk to these big companies and they're like, oh no, we have our own terms of service. And I'm like, great. And so they send over this like, 6-page legalese document. And like, I read it and I think I understand most of it and it seems okayish. Or they will sometimes like redline our doc and be like, legal wants these changes to your terms of service. It's like, okay, this seems okay. But I'm kind of going by my own, limited knowledge. How reckless is that? Like, were you hiring lawyers to like review all these changes to make sure nothing was slipping through that is potentially worse than you think it is?
I was fortunate because our COO actually had a law degree. And that was a very nice dual purpose person to have in the company, which was if I ever felt uneasy, I would say, Steve, can you read this? and then he would often come back and say, like, here's 11 things that have risk on them from my perspective. And I, as the ultimate decision maker, would say, I'm comfortable with risks 1 through 9, but these 2, I agree. Like, that's just, you need somebody that thinks like a lawyer at the very least, is what I'm trying to say. And so that could be a lawyer, which you're going to end up paying $500 every time for somebody to do that, maybe more. Or you bring somebody in-house that is like an enterprise salesperson with a lot of domain experience in looking at these contracts. That can be hard because the way sales is done at Tuple is not necessarily the same way sales are done at other organizations. And then the last one is, yeah, man, if it just so happens that Joel or Spencer got their JD, beforehand, that can help. But that is really valuable. That definitely, it saved me because I'm the happy puppy salesperson. Like I just want everyone to be my friend and get all the sales done. And I'm like the champion's best pal. That was never good at looking at a contract with a critical eye because, I just never saw the things they saw. And a lot of times the other company, especially if they were startups, so like, yes, Shopify is one thing, but like if you end up, you're about to do a deal with, some well-funded startup over there, they don't necessarily have like an axe to grind or like a strong preference in some of these things either. Like they're also making it up. So it's just going to like, who fills that vacuum of ignorance, right? Is it going to be you or not? And like, if you don't bother, they're not going to bother either. But like, if you do bother, they might be like, oh yeah, we agree. That's kind of dumb. Let's just accept that. So I did that too. Like I sold to venture-backed startups in the supply chain space who really weren't trying to be difficult. They would just ask for things to see if they could get away with it, right? And they're like, and having somebody that can call that, I'd be like, yeah, no, I don't think so. They're like, okay, fine, cross that out. I'm like, what? Like, wait a minute, what? I thought we were friends. It's like, yeah, but these are contracts. And like at some point, somebody who's not friends with either of us is going to look at this and say, why were you so stupid? Or, so it's all part of growing up.
Totally. Okay. Taking contracts seriously. Sounds important.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm definitely in the same mindset where it's like, yeah, let's just get this done. Like if it looks basically okay, that seems fine. Like surely we're never going to sue each other. But that's probably not the way.
Yep. That was like my first 5 contracts. And you guess which 5 were like the most scrutinized during our acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
So enough to give you a heart attack later, so.
Yeah.
Yep.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. I'm curious about just like let you freestyle for a minute of like things you think it'd be worth trying or looking into or swapping around.
For Tuple.
Any thoughts you've just had, while watching?
I think it goes back to you having somebody that works with you on these deals. It might be the biggest ask.
Like a coach, you mean?
Or somebody you could just throw something over to. I did this all the time. It's like, I'm about to send this email. Can you look at this and tell me if this is like the right thing I should be asking for? Like sales worked so much better through the ups and downs when I had somebody that I could come back to the room with and just say, like, this is how this is going. Now, you're skipping a couple chapters. That's the thing that I come back to with this, where it's like, you're not having to persuade people and all that stuff. So it might be over, OP for you to have somebody that like helps you navigate persuasion and all that stuff. But I think for you, like you could end up having somebody with sales operations experience that knows all the mechanics and can just like streamline that, like might be worth exploring. What could somebody do in a month or 2 months or 3 months, sitting with you for the first month, working with you for the second, and then deploying a bunch of cool stuff for the third. Like that could really help. Could also free you up to do. I just think like sales is it's a hard solo player game, right? So whether it's persuasion or mechanics, right now you're just having a ball swimming in the pool. But like I think you would benefit a lot, just like anybody else, from having someone with more experience support you in one of those ways. That's probably the easiest way. And that could pick one. Maybe it's legal, maybe it's operations, maybe it's pricing. But like between those 3, like imagine if your pricing was better, your contracting was better, and your operations were better. You know, it's hard to know what that's worth, but I got to think that's worth something. You know, and I don't know your volume of deals right now, so maybe it's not. So, you know, if you have,
it's like I'm working like maybe 10 at a time at this point.
Oh, geez. Like, pick two, take two, and call me in a quarter. Yeah, I would pick two of those if you're doing that volume. I was thinking like if you're only doing one or two at a time, maybe pick one or something like that. But yeah, man, that's two.
I mean, they're all slow.
Yeah.
So it's like I check in once a day and like, okay, do I need to email anybody to ping them about the thing? And so it's not like a ton of work, but there is a lot of, you know, balls in the air, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, if you add up the total amount of revenue that those contracts are worth potentially over the next year or 2 or 3 years, that is a lot of revenue to bet on, right? To improve
to use as a learning experience.
yeah, that as well. But if you're like, wow, that's like $1.5 million worth of revenue. Should I spend $15,000 to like make it better? You know, yes, obviously. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I like it.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I don't want to let you go before you have a chance to talk at least a little bit about what you're up to these days.
Oh, yes. I'm up to things and up to my neck in things. It's good. So right now I'm working on Summit. Summit is every startup CFO is the new tagline I have for it. And, you know, a CFO is a chief financial officer. And the idea is strategic finance is not something that most early stage startups especially get into or realize the value of. And so what I'm trying to do is, between my experience and then infusing that experience in this product, can I help early stage companies realize the benefits of strategic finance earlier in their life cycle? So that would be things like forecasting, fundraising, team compensation, even cash flow forecasting, runway. I think runway is one that we're all familiar with, so it's kind of a nice toe in. But I'm building a product for that, and it's called Summit. And it's a freemium approach, so I want to make it really, really easy for folks to get started. And on the ground right now, I'm working on a premium version, so that will be coming out soon. And I am doing customer development with a few startups that are kind of later on in their life cycle, so 6 figures plus, sometimes 7 figures in revenue, and really figuring out what the highest value use cases are for the product. And in some of those cases, one side benefit, which I'm also working on, is financing. So I'm helping a couple of startups in particular think through, how much money do they could really use money to do things like we just talked about. If they don't have the $15,000 necessarily to spend on the coaching, contracting help that they need to improve those things, but it's like obvious that if they did, it would be better for their businesses. So helping them think through where to get that, especially in the current environment where there's a lot of lending options. There's a lot of new alternative venture capital options. A CFO in a larger organization will also help with financing and figuring out where to raise money. So I'm helping them think through those things. So having a lot of fun, figuring out how to get it off the ground from a revenue standpoint. And it's kind of I guess my CTA, if there is one, is try out Summit and follow me on Twitter if you'd like. I'm happy to help startups think through these kinds of things.
How can someone in the audience know if they might be a good fit? Like, do you have a sense of the profile? I
think for the early stage, there's kind of 2 triggers. One trigger is I'm not really sure where to invest in growth. I know that I want to grow, but I'm not sure how to grow this thing. It's not obvious to me what the next thing is to do. I've got 6 ideas, and which one do I work on, and which one is going to help the business in terms of best business impact? That's a dilemma or a challenge that this helps with and can help with directly. The other one is somebody very important, whether it's my team or my boss in some cases at a larger company, needs a forecast. And the forecast, the accuracy of that, like, ties to my credibility. So if I just make something up in a spreadsheet, I could end up embarrassing myself. That's an emotional trigger, but it's also a very it's a common one, and that comes along more on the lines of, if you're doing a 409A valuation, which is something you'll start to do once you give options to employees. If you're thinking about borrowing money and the payment terms involve growth in your business, like revenue-based financing, or if you're just telling your team, hey, here's our revenue goal for the year. Like, once you feel the burden of that goal, like being realistic but achievable, that's a good time to start thinking more seriously about your forecasting abilities. It's like, do you as the founder want to keep not having a sanity check on that and not really, being rigorous, or is it okay to just keep promising? And this is something I talked about in a recent podcast episode on Product Journey, is like, there's risks there, obviously, to your leadership credibility. So I can help with that as well. Those are kind of two sweet spots that I'm starting to zero in on.
Cool. Sounds good.
Yeah. Thanks for
And
asking.
I can put out a pitch for you in general as a helpful, knowledgeable person. I've had some good email exchanges with you that definitely helped a lot. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, anytime. My DMs are open.
Cool. Nice. All right. If you'd like to hit the show notes for this episode, that's artofproductpodcast.com. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.